Hi, my amazing planner friends. It's Jess from My Magical Planner, and today we're going to be looking at the differences and similarities between the 2024 version of the Sterling Ink Common Planner and the Hobonichi Cousin. Now, I have both of these in an A5 size. I have used them all year, although their purposes are different for me. I use the Hobonichi Cousin as kind of my catch-all planner. This is where all of my planning for my family goes, like kids events and bills, things like that I needed to keep track of. And the common planner is where I do my content planning, which means this is where I plan out my videos, figure out what videos I want to put out that month, those type of things. So that being said, we're going to be looking at quality, price, layouts, and my overall thoughts. I'll try to timestamp all of those different pieces down below, and we're going to go ahead and get into it. So the first thing people might be looking at when they're comparing these two planners is price. So how do they compare price-wise? And it depends a little bit on how you look at it. So the common planner, I don't know the price of the A5 size, which is what both of these are, for this year, because that planner has not released yet. It is coming out September 15th, but I'm going to go off of last year's price and say that it'll probably be in the ballpark of it, which was $58. So we're going to say $58 for the common planner. As for the Hobonichi, it's a little bit more nuanced, I would say, because the planner itself, if you buy it directly from Hobonichi, is $34. Now, if you're in Japan, you probably won't have a huge shipping cost. And so that is amazing. And that would make this planner so much cheaper than the common planner. However, as a US person, I have to pay a premium for shipping it overseas to me. And even though I wasn't able to get it from Hobonichi themselves because of the craziness that was launch day this year, that's its own thing. Sorry. But if I were to pay that $34, I also have to pay $30 in shipping to get it. So I can either do that, or I can actually buy it from a reseller over here, someplace like Yoseka Stationery or Jet Pens. Amazon usually eventually gets them. I think that's in combination with Jet Pens, but I'm not positive. And those tend to sell for about $60. So if we're looking at that price for the US, I don't know what it would be if you're like in Europe or in Japan, and I don't know what the shipping fees would be on this if you're in one of those countries. So that being said, for the US, they are comparable in price. Okay. Next, let's talk about quality. So we have some differences as far as what they offer in forms of quality. However, I don't know that one is better than the other, to be honest. There are some advantages for the Hobonichi Cousin, but the common planner also has some selling points that I think are really valid. Now, they both use the exact same Tomoe River paper because the old Tomoe River paper is no longer offered. So for these two planners, they both use the 52 GSM Tomoe River S paper, which some people love and some people not so much. It really depends on the type of pens that you use. There is a change in how fountain pens work on these papers compared to the old papers. It's not huge, but they both have the same. They are both the same color of paper. So they're both a white paper instead of a cream. So let's show you that. So here is a page in the common planner, and here is one in the Hobonichi Cousin. So obviously the same color. We'll get into layouts in a minute. While we're talking about the paper and the quality of the paper, yes, it is supposed to be as thin as it is. Yes, you are supposed to be able to see the grid below. Yes, you will see ghosting from the previous page here. That is totally normal. What is unique about this particular paper is the fact that while it is incredibly thin, you do not get the bleed through on the other side. So even though when I lay it down, you can see like a little bit of ghosting from the previous page from me writing there, if I have the page up like this, you're not actually seeing through. So if that's something that's going to bother you, one solution is to use a pencil board and put it underneath. It does help. Does it fix the problem completely? No, but it does help. So just a thought for the paper, because I did see our TikTok recently of someone complaining about the paper quality, and I would say that in all honesty, they called it a cheap planner. And I don't think they understood the complexity of the paper that is in here. It's very similar to what people call Bible paper. We love the crinkliness of it and the way it bulks out, the fact that you can even use like watercolors on this paper and have it be okay. You can use markers. Sometimes they do bleed through. There are a lot of pens that will smear on this paper because it takes a longer time for it to dry. And that is a product of being able to use fountain pens on it. And with fountain pens, you have very unique inks, some of which do things like glitter, or they have sheening qualities where you might have another color that comes out. And the longer the ink takes to dry, the more of those qualities you're going to see. And that is why this paper has those. So just as an FYI, since we're talking about quality here. So there is that. So they have the same paper. The biggest difference I see is the covers. So the Hobonichi Cousin has a more, well, it's a cardstock cover. And that's in part because the Hobonichi Cousin really isn't meant to be a planner that you just take around like this. It is meant to be a planner that you put in a cover or a case. They sell lots of really nice ones. This is the one that I have. I absolutely adore this. This is from Hobonichi themselves. It's a leather one that they came out with last year. But most people have their Hobonichis in something like this to protect them. Now, this cover, I can either just slide it into one side or have the cover itself under both sides. So it's really, truly protecting it. The other thing that a lot of Hobonichi users have is a jelly type cover like this. I won't call it a cover on cover because in the Hobonichi world, that means something different. A cover on cover is going to be a cover that will cover your case, not your planner itself. So you can get these on eBay. I think Midori is the main brand that people tend to use. I haven't had the best luck in getting the right size, and I think that's a me problem, but I was able to order this cover off of Etsy with the butterflies on it. I absolutely adore it, and I just put this around the outside for my decoration. Now, a lot of people love having this kind of blank slate, I'll call it, for their planner cover because it allows them to completely customize the cover. To give you an example of that, I will show you. This is from a previous year, and this is the Hobonichi AVEC, which means it's split into two portions. The Common Planner also offers a version like this, but you can put large stickers on the front. This was for 2022. This one too. Sorry, I was like, what years are these? But a lot of people put stickers on the front like this, or do something more along these lines where they're adding some stickers and some other things and kind of collage things together. That being said, I don't feel like the Common Planner really lends to that because of the type of material that they use for the cover. So this is I believe it's a vegan leather, and it's really beautiful. It's just more sophisticated, and so it leaves less opportunity to be able to decorate it, in my opinion. It also has a texture to it, which sometimes makes it harder for things to stick to it. And now that being said, she has announced this year that she's going to come out, I think they're coming out in October, some covers similar to this, only they'll probably be clear, which should allow people who want to decorate the ability to decorate and customize the front of their planner a little bit more. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is the binding. They have similar bindings. If you look at them from this direction, you'll see the kind of crosshairs. It's a little less noticeable, I would say, in my sterling ink planner, probably because of the heavy chunk that has happened with my Hobonichi Cousin. So just keep that in mind. Now, from the top, you can kind of see that the quality is slightly different. I would give a slight advantage to the Hobonichi Cousin. So they're bound the same way in that they're stitch bound, and they're kind of made into these little booklets, and then the booklets are sewn together. Now, if you look really closely here at the Hobonichi Cousin, you'll see I don't really see any separation there, even though we have a huge amount of chunk, but there's maybe a teeny bit at the very beginning here, but not much. Where when I look at my common planner in the same aspect, sorry, hold on, there it is. You'll see a little bit more separation in there. It's not much, but there is a little bit of that. Now, both of these planners are meant to lay completely flat. So just to give you an idea, here is pretty much in the middle of the book, and it does lay pretty flat. My Hobonichi Cousin does the same thing. Now I'm going to show you a little trick that a lot of people I don't think really realize, because they'll come to the back. Well, okay, hold on. Let's show you more towards the middle. So here's the middle, lays pretty flat. But when you get to the end of the year, a lot of the complaint is, so here's this month. You kind of get this, edging. It's harder to write on. These books are meant to be able to fold over on themselves so that you can still get that completely flat look. It's not really hurting the binding. It's what it's meant to do. So just to give you an idea, the sterling ink will do the same thing. So both of them are pretty on even grounds there. So all right, there's one other thing as far as quality that I have heard a little bit of rumblings about that some people like and some people don't, which is the sturdiness of the planner. So here is my common planner. You don't get a ton of flexibility. I mean, it's flexible, but not like hugely so. And I think that's mostly because of the type of cover we have here. Now, with the common planner, it tends to be a little bit more floppy and can bend quite a bit more. Some people like that. Some people really don't. They feel like it just kind of isn't for them. So if that is a factor for you, and you love the common planner, I would say that you need a case for it. Perhaps the overall jelly type covers that she's going to come out with are going to add some structure to it, but just know that going into it that it is probably like one of the most flexible planners I've ever had. I don't know that there really is a winner as far as quality goes. I think they're pretty spot on in comparison there. I think the biggest difference comes when you're talking about the layout. Now, we'll kind of do a little bit of a flip through so you can see that. The front pages are pretty similar here. So I like to decorate with a little sticker. So the biggest difference here is that the Hobonichi Cousin is more cream here and the sterling ink is white. But other than that, they're pretty much the same. Then we go into kind of a blank page, and you'll notice that this first page is always kind of bound a little bit more tightly to this page, so it doesn't lay the same way the rest of the book will. Hobonichi has the same thing. Same exact thing. So there's no winner there. Then we come to this page, and now I've covered up mine a little bit, so it is a little bit different, but and she has changed this up a little bit with the new planner. I don't remember exactly the format in this very beginning, but I can tell you the general So they both have a calendar for 2024 that's going to look like this. That's going to be the same for this next year. The difference is for the Hobonichi Cousin, you have this year's calendar. And then on this side, on, I want to say it's the top. Actually, let's look and see if I have it on one of my older planners so I can truly show you. I'm sure one of them has it. Okay, well, this one shows it a little bit more, but this one had 2022 here. Then you have the next year here. And then in this area, you have the previous year. So I think it's good for some people as far as their planning goes and everything. It's the same in every planner. And it's a difference in style. I think here in the US, we tend to only look at the current year. There are times that seeing the coming year, though, can be really beneficial, especially if, like my husband has, conferences that are planned out years in advance. And sometimes being able to know when those conferences are and being able to visually see them can be really helpful. Now, the previous year, I don't tend to use that area so much. And obviously, I need to come in and fill out some of this. I've been meaning to. I have them wrote down. I just haven't. I redecorated this page to be able to put wins for the year so that I would know what I accomplished this last year. So I see a lot of people doing decoration stuff like this in here or adding a goal-oriented space up here. Now with the Common Planner, as far as goals go, she's got you covered. So our next pages are blank. And I think this is the same with the coming year, but I could be wrong. Just keep that in mind. But after the blank pages in the Common Planner, we come into a goal breakdown. So she has this all gridded out. I think you get, is it 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 different categories, and it's got a grid on it. Now the grid is really light. That is something she has changed for this coming year. These lines will be darker so you can more definitively see where the breaks and everything are. I mean, they're totally there. It's just, it's not as noticeable, and that can be a little hard for some people. But you have an area to put your category for your goals. You have a someday, 1 year, half year, quarterly, monthly, weekly, and daily kind of steps to complete those goals. I really like this page and do wish I had it in the Hobonichi Cousin. However, I do my goal planning in a completely different system. I use a Moxie Life companion notebook. So not having it in the Hobonichi Cousin, it's not a deal breaker for me. Now, after we have this goal breakdown, she then does quarterly breakdowns. And this is a big difference from how the Hobonichi Cousin handles this portion. So here we have quarter 1 and we have priorities. You have each month on this side, so you can write out different things that you want. And then on this side, you have your monthly index. At least that's what Hobonichi calls it, which is what these pages are in the Hobonichi Cousin. Now, the biggest thing you're going to notice as we flip through is the colors. So Hobonichi Cousins have a lot more color than the Sterling ink. The Sterling ink is, well, she's changed it so that the Saturday and Sunday are now grayed out, I believe. But other than that, there's no real color on here, where the Hobonichi Cousin has Saturday and Sunday with kind of a gray tone for Saturday, and Sundays are always red to kind of bring your attention to those. A lot of people use these for tracking or indexing different things. I did do some habit tracking here, kind of fell off the horse on that, but you know. But here I use it to mark out what videos I did. And I like both aspects. The one thing that the Hobonichi Cousin doesn't have and that the Common Planner has added this year is an additional kind of index page. So you have these for each quarter. And then I don't know if it's before or after because I don't remember the format, but she has another index page that is more similar, I would say, to what you see in the front of the Hobonichi weeks. I can try and insert a picture here for you guys of what that's going to look like, but you're going to have a 2-page spread that's going to have each month in a small column to be able to track something or do something like that. A lot of people, I think, are going to be using it for period tracking or health tracking and that type of thing. I have a use for it and I can't wait to tell you about it, but we're going to wait for another video for that. So after we get through the index pages, now they both start in December. I have covered up my Hobonichi Cousin to kind of make something else out of it. This is my school information for this year so that I have that and be able to, you know, at a glance, be able to pick up my notebook and say, call the school and say, hey, my kid's going to be pick up, or this bus didn't come, or my kid's sick, that type of thing, or contact a teacher, that type of stuff. But a lot of people do use this December page for whatever, kind of to gently get into their planner. But both of them have the exact same kind of layout for this. Let's go to January in both of them. So you can kind of see it here. I think these lines have also been darkened. I'm not sure about the numbers, but the really big difference here, because the grid size is pretty, like, as far as I can tell, it's the exact same. The biggest difference here is really, again, it's kind of come to that color. So we have Sundays with red and Saturdays with that gray tone. We have neither of those here. On the Hobonichi Cousin, we also have moon tracking because that's a really big thing for people. And you also have, it's very light, and I kind of wish this is what they would do for Sunday and Saturday, but you have very light kind of redded out areas that go along with the top line of each line of the grid. And then you also have down here the week number for what week in the year it is. Now Hobonichi also, now Sterling Ink also does that. So you have that, you just don't have these like pinked out line areas that would help you, say, if you were breaking it down with task for that week or important things or different sections. So say you wanted to have a cleaning section and a to-dos for your house for that month and those type of things, you could totally do it that way as well. But other than that, there really isn't a big difference as far as the layout itself for the monthly pages. Now, that being said, I kind of prefer, so I prefer the grid and everything without the colors that you have here, but I prefer the side column that I have with the Cousin because I like having those definitions. And one of the things that Hobonichi does, and we'll see it in some of their other spreads, is they kind of have these hidden lines that help you to break up the planner space and kind of give you a guide without you having to measure it out. And I don't really see that in the Sterling Ink. Like maybe if she did a slightly darker line for some of these, but it also depends on the type of planning that you're doing. So let's go to a completely blank monthly spread so you can see that, since this does have things on it and sometimes that can be distracting. So let's go to October. So you can really see here the differences. So you have a much more subdued and kind of minimalistic feel with the font from the Sterling Ink. You have a much bolder font here and a larger header space. In the Hobonichi Cousin, for the side here, you have the same information, just in a different order and prioritization. Like you don't have this colored box at the top bringing your eye to it. You don't, like this one abbreviates October. Sterling Ink is going to write out October, but it's going to be a lot smaller. They both have the number 10 because it's the 10th month. It's just in the sterling ink, that's the priority. And they both have the year here. So it really has the same information and the same amount of space really taken up, but it's laid out differently and much more. I think this lends a little bit more to a creative design. All right. After you get through all of your monthly spreads, the next thing each of these books gives you is weekly spreads for each week of the year. And while, again, they're very similar, there are some subtle differences that can make a big effect on how you plan. The first thing I'll say is, like, the column size is pretty much the same. The biggest difference there is that with the Hobonichi Cousin, you have more defined lines coming down, which I really like, where in the sterling ink, you just have the numbers. And so it's not as defined of a space. Now, this works really well if you're doing very traditional vertical planning. If you are somebody who likes to kind of overlap columns and maybe do more journaling in this space and that type of thing, I think the sterling ink would be the winner as far as that goes. The next thing I'll say is that the Hobonichi Cousin is a 24-hour timeline on the side. So we start at 5 a.m. and go to 23 o'clock or whatever that is. So I think it's supposed to end at 4 a.m. for you. I'm not sure. I'm not really good at the universal time, like the 24-hour clock, but it is that. I do wish that they had a version that had two 12-hour clocks, and I think my brain would like that a little better. You can get stickers to kind of go over this timeline and do that. So it is an easy fix. For the sterling ink, however, we start at 6 a.m. and go to 12 p.m. And we have a 12-hour clock on this one. So it's just, I think it's more adjusted for the US. Now, as far as the spacing between the two, I think the hourly spacing is the same. It's 2 grid boxes, which is what you get here as well. So sizing wise, I think they're about the same. I'm not sure how that works out exactly. I need to figure this out, but it just, oh, maybe this one starts higher and goes lower. I don't know. Something. So that being said, so you have more defined spaces and a 24-hour clock versus the 12 and 12 here. And at the top, the layout is a little bit different from one to the other. So the Hobonichi Cousin, along with having more defined spaces vertically, also defines the spaces horizontally a little bit more, in that we have these boxes around your days of the week and the date to kind of add definition. You also have the kind of blue-gray here and the red giving definition to what day of the week it is. You have a more bold font and the number is definitely bigger here as well. Where on the sterling ink, you have a smaller, more compact number, a much smaller day of the week here. And then your grid starts immediately on the sterling ink. It doesn't have anything kind of filled in for those first couple of boxes, so it's just a grid up there, where the Hobonichi Cousin leaves a blank space up here. So I find that really good for weather tracking, or if you're doing mood tracking, any kind of thing like that, or you just want to label, like say it's, I don't know, like today, Labor Day, and you can put that up in this area. So I kind of like this aspect. I wish I could combine the two and have these numbers and days of the week with this space. But you can make it with the grid and it's not a big deal. It's just a preference there. The other big difference here comes in the layout of the side column, which again is the sterling ink is a little bit more minimalistic, I would say, than the Hobonichi Cousin. So we have all the same information being given, but it's just laid out a little different. So They both have the year here, only Hobonichi puts it at the very top, where Sterling Ink has it kind of right here at this dotted line. There is no colored box up here on the Sterling Ink where there is in the Hobonichi Cousin. You have the month, we have the number of the month, as well as the name of the month, where the Hobonichi Cousin actually only does the name of the month, at least in this version. This is the English version, by the way. We have the week number, which both of them have the week number. Hobonichi puts it kind of all in line here, where the Sterling Ink puts it over to the side a little bit. Let's zoom you in here a little bit so you can see it a little better. And then we have a Monday through Sunday calendar with the week kind of circled. Both of them have the exact same type of calendar, only the Hobonichi Cousin does do some of those color changing things to bring your attention to it. And then below that, you do have just a blank grid area. So overall, they're very, very similar. They just have some subtle differences. Now, before we move on to the back of the planner, I want to talk a little bit about stickers, because that is a big part of my personal planning style and how that works for me. So I enjoy being able to do things like this, or this, or this. I like variety. So I enjoy having the flexibility, but still having definition in my columns, because when I take this type of stickering, and I did a couple of like just practice pages. So this is the exact same type of layout in the Hobonichi Cousin, or this is the exact same type of layout in the Sterling Ink, and I just prefer it in my Hobonichi Cousin. For whatever reason, I don't like not having the definitions of the lines because I tend to stay in them. This was using Sweet Kawaii Design stickers, and then I also did one using a different layout, trying to see, as I was deciding what planners I want to order this year, how this was going to work for me. And I do think that I could make it work either way. Like drawing in the lines totally helped me. Having the space to do this and have the numbers not be so noticeable. I have done this in the Cousin as well. So just to give you an idea, I just prefer this for some reason. Now, the other thing I neglected to talk about is the fact, hold on, sorry, is this space down here at the bottom. So in your Hobonichi Cousin, that space is still part of these columns, where in the Sterling Ink, it's kind of free space. So it allows you to do more vertical stuff or journal along the bottom or whatever you want, where in the Hobonichi Cousin, our line is going all the way to the bottom. And down here, you have a 0 and then a 1, 2, 3, 4, which maybe that's where the 24-hour calendar comes in. I always took this as, and you guys are going to laugh at me because I just realized that this is really how the 24-hour clock fits in. Yes, I am that stupid sometimes. But I always took the 0 because I'm not planning anything between midnight and 4 a.m. I take this as a breaking point, and I go ahead and put my to-dos down here. Sometimes I use this for tracking in a space, but I like having the definition of where the days are. So I have that line, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. I always took that to mean like the priorities of the day. Oh goodness, guys, I'm so sorry. But that's how I use it. Everyone may be different. So some people just block it out with washi. Some weeks I do that. But here, like some weeks I use it to track my dinner down there for planning. That's a different layout. Sometimes I make the to-do list come up higher depending on what I need. But see, this is tracking walks and food down here and that type of thing. So I think those are all the differences on the weekly layout. I was kind of hoping that she would make a maybe not as firm of a line as a Hobonichi Cousin, but a darker line here. But I haven't seen that, so I don't think she's made that change. I think all the darker lines come from the beginning pages and like the monthly. Now, the next big change is, or difference between these two planners, comes from the back here. So in the back of the Hobonichi Cousin, you have daily gridded pages. Now these pages tell you the day of the week, the moon cycle. You have a 6 a.m. to 3 a.m. maybe timeline here on the side. You have a 5-box checklist up here. You do have this quote section, which a lot of people really hate. And over a 2-page spread, you do get a calendar in the corner here. So I love these pages, even if I don't use them always in the traditional sense. There's a lot of things that I really love about these pages. I love that we have a hidden line here. Now this, just to show you, here's the difference. And this is the type of line I wish she would put in here. So all of these are kind of a dashed or dotted line in here. And then you get to this line and it's a solid line. There's no difference really in the coloring or the darkness of the line, but just having it as a solid line instead of the dashed lines gives a slight emphasis to it. So it draws your eye there, and that's giving you a nice dividing point between your schedule and any other things you want to do. And it only goes to the end of the schedule here. So it kind of helps you divide things in a unique way. The common planner, on the other hand, you have all your weeklies, and then you get to the back and it is just grid pages. There's no definition for what day it is or anything. And that works great for me for doing things like planning out content, researching hashtags, general note taking, things like that. I don't necessarily need a day of the week for those. However, for my everyday planner, like I said, I don't use every day, but I do use a lot of them. And sometimes I have them like this. Sometimes there are things like this, and they really are month specific, even if they may not be day specific. I think that's really where the difference comes in for me, is I may not use these all for a specific day, but I'm going to use them all for that month. So I like having that aspect. I like being able to do brainstorms in here and stuff. And you can do the same type of thing in the common planner. You can date this. These are numbered, where the Hobonichi Cousin, because it is split up by month, you don't need a numbering process. So here you have the numbering. I think they have about the same amount of pages, so you have enough for a page a day if that's what you want. A lot of people feel confined by a page a day, and so they'll either want less or more, or the ability to skip days without feeling like they're wasting space. The other thing that the common planner has that the Hobonichi doesn't. Now, the Hobonichi has their own version of the hidden lines, like I showed you, but the Sterling inked version is kind of a guide to help you split it into quarters. So you have a dot here and here to line up with if you wanted to draw a line kind of down the middle of the page. And then you also have the same thing side to side to kind of help you divide it that way. So you can either do half pages, maybe you're writing columns of notes or indexing or anything like that. And that is extremely helpful for that type of planning or note taking or whatever you're doing. You can also use it to split it up so that you have, 4 days of the week or whatever. And like I said, I think you have enough for every day of the week. And she does have sticker kits that allow you to number these days and have it become more like the cousin if you want it. The only other difference I can think of is here at the back. So you have grid pages all the way to the end, where in the Hobonichi Cousin, you get to the end of the year right here, and you have blank pages. I think there's 4 of them. And then you get a schedule page. This works really well for people who have classes, like students and that kind of thing. Then you get a graph that you can customize for whatever you want. You get this page, which I have converted for, it was supposed to be for book club, but the books I've been choosing haven't been great. You get a My 100 list. You get an interview with myself, kind of some extra pages that not everybody likes having. Then we get some recipes here. You get, these change from year to year, so I'm not sure if they'll be the same. Then you get another like interview type page, or I think this might have been words of the month or something that I changed. Then you get a yearly habit tracker, which I think a lot of people enjoy this, and kind of some general info here. You get a gift list and an address page, and then a personal notes or information in case you are to ever lose your planner. The one other thing I forgot to mention about the daily pages is that the grid colors change from month to month. And so where the sterling ink is all, that black and white or gray and white, whatever, the Hobonichi Cousin does change it generally. It's only for the day on one pages or daily pages, but you'll see the grid here is purple for October. Don't ask me why they picked purple for October, but they did. November is green. I kind of think that should have been December, but And then December is red. So if those color changes are going to bother you, that's also something to consider. And the first day of the month, you do get a blank page here, and it does have this line that coordinates with the color. So you can see it here is green. This one's red. October should be purple. Now, that's everything that each of these planners has to offer. As far as branding goes, I would say they're probably about the same. The sterling ink might be a little bit more subtle in that, it kind of blends in here, but it is there, and you do have it on the back as well. Where the Hobonichi Cousin, you have it here, and that's it. The sterling ink does have the year on the spine as well as the size. So if you do have them on a shelf, you might like that. But I think they're both amazing planners. So what am I ordering for this year? I kind of already said that I'm getting a Hobonichi Cousin, and that is completely factual. I'm going to stay in my Hobonichi Cousin for this next year for my family catch-all planner. That is because I need a little bit more structure, and I like the way that the sticker kits look in here a little bit better with the guideline of those darker lines for me. Now, is that the case for everybody? Of course not. And could I make the sterling ink work for me? I'm sure I could. So that is what I'm doing for this next year as far as my everyday planner. I am doing a slight switch up as far as my common planner. I love the A5 size. It is great for me. However, with my weekly planning as far as this goes, I have realized that there is a lot of wasted space in here, and that a different layout might be more beneficial to me. And this year, the Common Planner has come out with a vertical layout that is very similar to what you would see in like the Hobonichi weeks, where you have the weekly layout kind of on this half, and you have it, sectioned off. And then this side is a blank grid page. And I like the thought of that because I feel like I can do all of my planning in that area and then be able to have a larger like checklist or whatever on this side. Now that is provided I am able to order one and they're not so popular that I am beat out. I have my fingers crossed. Worst case scenario, I might end up with one of her notebooks or an undated one. We'll see about that. But I'm really hoping to be able to purchase that on her launch day for it. Everything else besides the few changes that I mentioned should stay the same. So I should still be able to make spreads like this and be really happy because this is really beneficial to me. I love having the index pages in here so I can really see from a different perspective what I'm doing as far as my videos go. I can see where the big gaps are. I know the reasons for those and stuff. I started using 2 different colored inks because I have 2 different channels. The red is for my Disney Pen channel. And when I say pens, I mean pins. And the other is for all of my planning content. So that being said, I'm really looking forward to both planners. If you're looking at getting a case for your Sterling ink planner, anything that is going to fit a Hobonichi Cousin, as long as they're the same size, is going to fit your Sterling ink planner as far as I can tell. And so that is what I've been doing. This year, I used my previous year's case, or was it 2 years ago? Anyhow, this is a Moterm 8.5 planner case. This is what I use for my Sterling ink planner, and this works perfectly. It just slides right in, no issues, and fits perfectly. The biggest issue I have with it is actually the pen loop gets in the way sometimes. I did my own tabbing here. These are the Sterling ink tabs because I did get her subscription for over a year. So that's what those are. These are a little, I feel like they're really sturdy. So if she offers them, I would highly recommend them. And then these are the Hobonichi Cousin tabs that you can buy directly from them. That is everything I have for these 2 planners. If you have additional questions, feel free to put them down in the comments and I'll try to answer them as best I can. I wish you all the best in getting the planners that you want this year and that will help you the most. I would love to hear what you guys are getting. So leave me a comment down below and tell me what you're ordering. Are you ordering a Hobonichi Cousin or a Sterling ink? Are you doing both? I would just adore to know. Anyhow, that's all I have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give me a thumbs up and don't forget to hit that subscribe button down there. And until next time, I'll see you real soon.
I really wanted to get it right, trying to find some balance in my life.